Hello, welcome to Doublereno Woodworking. So today we are going to design some wood clamps for my Onefinity CNC router. I've got a piece of hard maple here I've already surfaced down. I got it right to the right thickness and it's already attached to the board ready to go. I've got T-bolts here, 2.5 inch T-bolts. I've got threaded inserts. I'm going to make my own knobs to clamp these down with too. So we're going to design this thing, and then I will probably do another video and we'll actually cut these things out, and then I'll do a separate video for the knobs too. Okay, so here we are in Vcarve Pro, and this will work in any of the Vectric software, Vcarve desktop, Aspire, it doesn't matter which one. This should all work, and it should work in all of them. So we want to create a new file, and my actual board that I've got cut out there on the CNC right now is 21 by 6.5. The actual thickness of it is 0.738. It was going to start out at 3/4, but that's what I ended up with after I surfaced it. We want to start at material surface, and we want our XY datum at the bottom left-hand corner on this design, and you'll see why in a minute. And of course, it's single-sided. So go ahead and hit OK. So the first thing we want to do is we want to draw a rectangle. So go ahead and just draw a rectangle out, and then come in here and change the width to 5 inches. We're going to make 3 different sizes, but we're going to start with the 5 inch. So 5 inch times 1.25. And then we want to put a radius on this thing. And I think we probably want to go, let's try a 1/4 inch. I think a 1/4 inch might be too much. No, actually a 1/4 inch looks pretty good. I think that's a good radius right there to start with. So we have that. So the next thing we want to do is we want to position this thing, and so you come over here on the move selected objects, and that's why we wanted to pick this lower left hand corner. So pick the lower left hand corner on this again, hit absolute, and I want on the outside, on the far left hand side over here, I want a 1/2 inch. So let's just put 0.5 inches, and I want 0.3125 on my Y position, and go ahead and hit apply. And the reason is I'm going to cut this whole thing out with a 1/4 inch end mill. I'm not going to ever change bits on it. So I want to leave enough room over here where I can put tabs in. So I have a 1/2 inch. I'm going to cut a 1/4 inch out, so that'll leave another 1/4 inch of meat to attach a tab. So I'm going to have tabs on the end, so I want space between the ends of each one of them. Okay, so that's my first rectangle ready to go. Okay, so now we're ready to make our slot. So we come back in and we want to make another rectangle and draw a little bit smaller, and come over here, and we want to make this rectangle 1 inch shorter than the big one, than the actual profile here. So we want to go 4 inches here, and then our height we want to make it 0.26, and that's going to give us enough for a 1/4 bolt to go through and a little bit of clearance. If you're using a different size bolt, you may have to adjust this for your slot. And we want to leave the radius external on there, and I think with that size, I think half the diameter, so it doesn't matter what you put. You can put 0.5 on that radius, and when you hit apply, it's going to change it to half the diameter of your height, or half of your height, so it's going to change that. So you just want a full radius where it's going to round the ends of it off. And go ahead and hit apply, close, and then we can take, the easiest way to do this probably is if you take highlight that, hold shift, highlight your other one, and then you want to come in here on your align to selected objects, and instead of align material, you want to align to selection, and that'll sink that thing right in the center of that box right there. Okay, so that's 2 of our 3 pieces that we got to do. The next piece, we want to make one more rectangle, and this one we want to make a 1/2 inch shorter than our whole profile, so that one's going to be 4.5 inches. And we want to make this one, our diameter is 1.25, but we want to make this one a little bit bigger. And what this is going to be, this is just going to be a pocket to cut out the meat out of this thing. So let's, instead of going 1.25, let's go 1.5 on our height on that one. While that one's selected, go ahead and hit shift, select the, oh, you got to close that first. Get rid of that. Always forget to close this over here in a minute. So anyway, oh, we need to fix this too. Go back into our triangles, or I'm sorry, rectangles, and we want that one to be square. So just hit square. Just highlight it again, go back to rectangles, and then square, and then enter or apply, and it'll go away. So now we got this one highlighted. And then we come in here and hit select, highlight our other one, and then go ahead and hit align to selected objects. And I wonder if this will work, inside edge. And then we want to go there. Yeah, so this one will take us, will center us that way, and then inside edge there will center us there. So that gets everything lined up, and if you look right here, this line is right on the end of that. This line is the same as that line there. So this is going to be a profile. This outside box is going to cut the half down on this, okay? So that's all of our design. All we got to do now is make copies, and then we start making tool paths. So what we want to do, go ahead and highlight this whole thing, and when you come down here to make an array copy, excuse me. So what we want to do on this, these are columns, these are rows. So we want 2 rows, and we want 4 columns. I'm sorry, I did that backwards. These are columns, so we want 2 columns, and we want 4 rows. So that's going to give us 2 columns this way, up 4 this way. So go ahead and hit copy. Oh, before we do that, we need to put an offset in here. So between here and here, that's our X. We want that to be 1 inch. And then I think I had this in there from before, 0.0625. So we want, this thing's going to cut a 1/4 inch out, and the other one is 1/4 inch out. So it's going to be a 1/2 inch out. So that's going to leave an 1/8 inch in between. So let's go ahead and go with that and see what that looks like. That is probably going to be fine. It all fits on our page. Go ahead and click off of that. It all fits on our page. It's not perfectly centered top to bottom, but it's pretty close. So now we've got basically our 8 5-inch. So the next thing I want to do, I'm going to make 4 more 4-inch and 4 more 3-inch ones. So highlight one of these, right click, copy, right click, paste, and just arrow over to move the copied one. That way it leaves our Y position the same. I'm not sure if that's going to matter or not, but so what we need to do now is we need to change the dimensions on this one. So go ahead and highlight that. You can either resize here. You can just click on that. Make sure that the link XY, because we want to leave our height the same. But change X to 4 and hit enter. That changes that down to 4 inches. Our big box needs to be a 1/2 inch shorter, so it needs to be 3.5 inches. Hit apply. And our slot needs to be 1 inch shorter than our overall 4-inch length, so that needs to be 3 inches. And hit apply. So I think that's already there. Just make sure that's centered. So select that, select the profile, and then align to selection center. Yeah, that's already there. So everything else stayed lined up. So all you really had to do is just resize them individually, and now you have a overall, double check that, should be overall 4-inch clamp. Yeah, we got a 4-inch by 1.5, which is this outside pocket cut. So that one's good. So the next thing we want to do, we want to make sure we have our 1 inch here. So what we want to do, we want to highlight this, come up here to move. Highlight move, and then we want to click on, we want to see where this point right here is. So you click on the right anchor point, and that position right there is 11.5. So we want the left one on the next one to be at 12.5 to give us our 1 inch. So we go back, highlight this one, go back to move, select the left anchor point, and change that to 12.5. And hit apply. And that gives us our 1 inch. 1 inch here, 1 inch there. So now we can take this one and we can go ahead and do an array on it. Do the array copy. And we just want 1 column on this one with 4. So that's going to be 1 column, 4 high. And hit copy. So now we got those. Now let's just do that one more time. I'll do this real fast. We're going to do the exact same thing we did on the other one. We're going to make it 3 inches. Okay, so we've got that one. Do the same thing. We highlight the whole thing. Close that out. do array copy, should be the same settings, 1 column, 4 high, copy. Okay, so now we've got all of these 1 inch apart, pretty much centered on our board here. And I think one thing before we make any toolpaths, you can't do this after you make your toolpaths, you'll mess them all up. But we can highlight this whole thing now, and we can go ahead and center to our selection. I'm sorry, center to material. And that's just going to adjust it a little bit, make everything nice and even. So we got all of our clamps now, so now we're ready to start making toolpaths. And there's 2 different things you can do here. You can move all of or copy everything to a layer, and it's really not that much harder to do, so I'm probably going to do that. So we're going to move everything. I'll do one and I'll fast forward to the other ones. I'm trying to make these videos not as long, but it's hard to do sometimes. So I'm just going through here and left dragging and grabbing all the profiles. So all the profiles are going to be one layer. So you come over here, you right click, and you want to copy. Do not move because it'll take them off your main board. So you want to copy to a new layer and just call that profiles. Let's go outside profile. Outside profile. And if you come up here now, you got our original layer, layer 1. We turn that off, and this is just our outside profiles on that layer. Okay, so we want to turn this back off, go back to your original layer, and we do the same thing with the slots, the same thing with the outside. I'll do that real fast. Okay, so we got everything moved onto a new layer, so we turn that off. There's our outside profiles, there's our slots, there's our pockets. So we're good to go. We're ready to start making toolpaths now. So let's go ahead and go with our outside profile first. So just turn off everything but your outside profiles and highlight it. And then you can either click on it to select that layer, or you can come over here and you can click activate, and that'll put that layer. So we're on our outside profile now. So select everything. Go ahead and click on this little button to get over to your profile or to your toolpaths. And this one is going to be a profile toolpath. And I've got a new bit. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch. I haven't loaded the bit before I run this program. I'll actually load the other bit in there. But I've got a new bit, a compression bit. It's a Speed Tool 1/4 inch compression bit. So let's just put this one in here for now, and then we can get our toolpaths made. And then I'm going to come back and change my bit out, and then I'll rerun my toolpaths to make sure it's going to work with that bit. So all my feeds and speeds and everything are right. So go ahead and select a 1/4 inch bit, and this outside profile needs to go all the way through our board. This is going to be our cutout. So our board was 0.738. So whatever the thickness of your board that you're making these clamps with, that's what you need that to be. So we got our tool in. We're going to start at 0. We're going to cut to the bottom of the board, and outside right is fine. Don't need a separate last pass because we're cutting all the way through anyway. We don't need ramps with it with a 1/4 inch end mill, so we're ready to calculate. So hit calculate, and then preview all toolpaths, and that's going to cut all these out. So now the one thing that we do need to do here is we're going to add tabs in this. So we'll go back, double click on your tool, and right here we're going to add tabs to a toolpath. And I played around with this a little bit, and I think what's going to work, I hope it works. I'm going to do a 1/4 inch length, 1/4 inch thickness, and the 3D tabs. And the 3D tabs give you this little like pyramid looking look to it. So we're going to hit edit tabs, and what I like to do, I've tried this where you let them put them in, but it never puts them where you want them. So it's easier just to leave that blank. Don't click anything, and just click where you want your tabs. And I'm just putting the tab somewhere in the middle on the end. I'm hoping this will hold it in just fine, and that's why we left that 1 inch in there too. And it's going to be relatively easy to sand these tabs off on that end right there. You don't want to put them on a corner, because then when you sand it, you got to try and sand your corners and make them look right. Let the machine make your corners good. all you have to do is just sand off a flat surface, and it should be pretty easy to do. And this is the only place we should have to put tabs on this. Okay, so you hit close, and we're going to recalculate. Make sure you recalculate after you add your tabs. Reset the preview, and then preview all toolpaths. So now we got our tabs on the bottom. Hopefully that'll be enough meat to hold those in there in place. Now, I made this profile first, but I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to put profile, and then I'm going to put run third, because you want to run this last. You want to do all your other hogging out and putting your slot and all that stuff in before you run this profile, because if you're trying to do all that other stuff, it's more likely your tabs are going to break loose. So go ahead and hit enter on that. So we're good to go. You want to run this profile. I did it first on the creating the toolpaths, but I want it to run last. So go back to 2D view, and now we're ready to go to, we can do our slots next. Actually, let's do our pocket next, because I'll show you why. So we get our pocket, we select all of our pockets, and then we go over to toolpaths. Okay, so we've got all of our pocket cuts highlighted now, and this is going to be a pocket toolpath. And so our cut depth, so our whole board was 0.738, and this pocket cut here needs to be half of the diameter or half of the thickness of our board. So on this pocket cut, we want to go, I believe I did it already, it's 0.369. So that's half of my 0.738. So if you started with a 3/4 inch board, it'll be 0.375. So you want to go halfway down with this. And we're going to pick that same, let's see, I need to remove that one. And we want to select our 1/4 inch end mill. Like I said, I'm going to change these end mills and recalculate before I actually run the program. So we have that, and we'll do that with a raster cut, and we can do profile pass. Probably isn't really necessary, but we do want to do a final last pass on this one. So hit set last pass thickness, and let's just say 0.03. Let's go 0.05. We'll do a final last pass. That'll make that a little bit smoother. And hit OK. So that's going to run a final last pass on that. And we don't need to ramp because it's an end mill. We don't need tabs, anything else. So we can go ahead and calculate that one. So let's go ahead and just run that toolpath. So this is our selected toolpath. And then now we take this and we tilt it up and look. And there's the shape of our clamps. Okay, so that should be half the thickness of our clamps, full thickness on the bottom, and then the half there. Okay, so that's taken care of, so we can close it. Before we do that, let's go ahead and rename that. And this needs to be this is going to be the first path that we run, because we don't want to put our slots in first, because then we're taking the slots out of the full thickness, which isn't necessary. So we come in here and we say that one's going to be our pocket path, and then we're going to say run first. And you'll see why when we generate the G code, why this is nice to put these in there, because it just reminds you, hit enter, it just reminds you of what you're running, and when you look at your G code, you know exactly which path each one is. So we come back to our 2D view, and we turn that off, our slots, we activate the slots, and our slots are gone. Where did my slots go? Oh, they're turned off. Okay, so there's my slots. So we highlight all the slots, we go back over to toolpaths, and this one we are going to also pocket. So we're going to use our same 1/4 inch end mill. Our start depth on this one is going to be 0.369, because we already hogged out that area where this pocket's going to go, or where this slot's going to go. So we're starting at 0.369, and then our cut depth is 0.369, so that should cut that all the way through. And the raster is fine. It's not really going to matter because this thing is literally like a thousandth of an inch over what the width of it is, so it's not going to really make any difference. We don't need to change anything else. And go ahead and hit calculate on that. We lost our selection, so select them again, hit calculate, and let's go ahead and preview that toolpath. So there's our slots. We went all the way through. We didn't get a warning, so it didn't go past their material thickness. It just went right to the bottom. So there's our slots. So that's it. The last thing we want to do, we want to rename this one. And we want to call this slots. And then run second. Okay, so I've got my new bit loaded in the database. So we're going to come in, we're just going to rerun all three of these profiles real quick. So we're going to select a new bit, and we got, open this up if I can see it. That's my bit right there, the WO 2003. So we're going to hit that and hit select. That was set for the hardwood settings. So then we just want to recalculate, and then I'm going to do the same thing on all three of these. Okay, so I have my new compression bit loaded into all three toolpaths. So I think what I'm going to do now is we're going to select all of these, and we're going to see how long it's going to run. It says it's 29 minutes total to run the whole program. So that's not too bad at all. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and copy the G code, and we're just going to go visible toolpaths to multiple files, and we'll just have to run all three toolpaths. And do we have them in the order that we want them? No, we do not. So I want them to come in. It doesn't matter really, but I'm going to go ahead and readjust them. So we're going to move this run first one to the top, run second, move that up to the second. So run first, run second, run third. And now we're going to come in and save toolpaths. Visible toolpaths to multiple files. That's what we want. We've got to run first or run second or run third. Go into the Woodworker, Onefinity is the post processor, and we're going to save toolpaths, and we're going to go here to our USB disk, Onefinity G code. Okay, and we're going to call this clamps for Onefinity. So we hit save. Now we've got clamps for Onefinity 1, that's the pocket first run, clamps for Onefinity 2, slots second run, and then clamps for Onefinity 3, profile run third. So that's perfect. So we're ready to run this thing. I'm going to go ahead and do another video, a separate video of actually cutting the clamps out. This one got a little bit long. I appreciate you watching. Please like, please subscribe, please share my videos, and I'll have this other video posted within a few days too. I appreciate you watching. Thanks.